you to all of the other presenters, as well as Nigel, who couldn't be here with us today, and the funding bodies for all of this research. It's been a pleasure, which is odd to say when we're talking about financing extremism, but it has been a pleasure to do this collaborative work with everyone. So today I wanted to talk a bit about some of the findings of the report, and I will note that I have generalized some of them. As Alexander said, we're not trying to give all of our secrets away on YouTube and in this conversation. So there will be some generalization going on in what I'm describing. So I think one of the important things to also highlight when we're talking about even the connections between Germany and the UK is just how many nationals are part of the UK financial ecosystem of right-wing extremism. So we have many people who have come from all over the world who have set up businesses in the UK, not just from Germany, but also Sweden and Belgium. We have found instances of that as being like registered owners of said businesses. That doesn't include employees. That would be an even more global range of individuals, but that's important, I think, to highlight. Also, I think there is, perhaps it's because I am Welsh, but I think it's important to note that when we talk about businesses and right-wing extremism in the UK, we found in our survey that actually most of the registered addresses and to the individuals who owned these businesses, as well as in the cases where their businesses were in fact brick and mortar, so physical entities. In both of those instances, England and English people dominated. So most of the businesses were registered to places in England and owned by individuals, if they were from Britain at all, who were English. So yes, there was a mention of Ireland or Northern Ireland, but we mostly see activity based out of England by English people. That said, not everyone, that's not the case for everyone, and there are several instances in which the individual will incorporate their business in the UK whilst themselves living abroad in various other parts of the Western world, not necessarily only Anglophone countries either. Many of them have taken up positions in North America or in Eastern Europe. So I think that's important to acknowledge those transnational links yet again. And so then we have a kind of split that I think is important. We have what are considered more traditional businesses, first and foremost, and then sort of digital enterprise. So I'll talk about each for a little while. So with regards to patterns, we did find that businesses were being opened in various sectors of the economy, but most often incorporated businesses linked with right-wing extremism fell within the categories of some kind of financial services, apparel, which William had referenced previously, as well as publishing or media, sometimes a mixture of the two. That could be book publishing, ebook publishing, or so-called news outlets, though maybe those on the mainstream would be more likely to call them fake news. Another pattern is to note that there's a kind of, for lack of a better word, old guard, as well as a younger generation. And I hate to use those terms because they sound relatively ageist. However, individuals over the age of 45 tended to fall within a category of establishing businesses that were presented as more intellectualized or respectable, so more in the book publishing and financial services sectors, as compared to the younger generation who did more digital content or apparel-oriented activities. And another thing that I found really interesting that I had not been as aware of was the embrace of what we've called the found and fold maneuver amongst the younger generation. So essentially they set up businesses rapidly and then sort of close them. So there's no idea of establishing a business with the purpose of having it be inherited by the next generation, or even setting it up for a long period of time. And that might be indications of some dubious financial practices, but at the very least, we note that they are relatively rapidly establishing and then folding these businesses and setting up a great number. So there are sometimes upwards of a dozen businesses being opened and closed throughout someone's career. And usually these found and fold businesses have a lifespan of about 2 years, but they can be incredibly brief. So even 6 months at times. At the same time, with these traditional businesses, I think it's important to note that it's not so easy to pick them out in terms of naming. They don't say this business is owned by a right-wing extremist. They don't necessarily use names like white power entity or neo-Nazi group. So it is quite difficult to pick them out. Also, businesses we found could be owned and registered to a right-wing extremist in their government name. Sometimes they are placed under aliases. And also there is a pattern amongst some to register businesses under the names of romantic partners or parents, step parents. So it is a little bit more difficult to track. Several actors will place any number of businesses on any combination of therein. And then I think the other element is, in addition to those registrations under various names, there is a tradition, let's say, of, or there's a lack of tradition around saying, okay, I am going to be the sole owner of this business, or this is a shared enterprise. It's a mixture. Some individuals register a company only under their own name, and others will share that that title with others. And then again, like we said, there is a variety of production costs, overheads, and products themselves being produced in these traditional businesses. And just to provide a case study, a generalized case study, in one instance, we had a right-wing affiliated individual who had businesses registered under their own name, multiple aliases, and the names of several different relatives and romantic partners. There were no patterns with regards to the naming of their businesses. So sometimes they put their own name in the business. They used non-English words. They used other nicknames, any number of things. So you could not have known just by looking at the business name itself that it was necessarily registered to this individual or had ties to this individual. And in my favorite act, so just to show the breadth of even just this one person's financial or business repertoire, this individual had businesses registered in construction, translation, book publishing, financial management, non-financial management, computing, information services, and news. And this individual had no training in almost any of those businesses as far as we know. And those businesses stayed open anywhere from 6 months to 8 years, but mostly survived for about 3 years before shuttering. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what was going on. And then we have on the other side, these more digital or virtual enterprises. And with regards to patterns and differentiations there, we have the younger generation more frequently using the internet, social media to sell their politics via virtual content. And we highlighted that these individuals use a tiered and multi-pronged approach to monetizing content. And what I mean by that is that they might offer some of their content for free and then say, if you want to learn more, why not subscribe to our channel? for X amount this month. If you become a bronze member, you can read this many articles. If you become a silver member, you can read twice that. And a gold member, you can have access to content earlier than everyone else. So those are elements there, and it engages in a soft to hard sell flow. And they do this at times on mainstream platforms, but largely migrating to fringe platforms. And the other facet we found was this item, or this concept of pay per chat. So several of the platforms that William highlighted have a function where you can pay per engagement with the right-wing extremist. And it's very difficult to know what is being said in those conversations. So that is somewhat worrisome. And with regards to differences, as I said, some require payment, others encourage donations. Some also sell their items at apparel, otherwise, so tangible items as well as digital content. Others just focus on the digital, as well as some focusing their efforts in fundraising around the holidays, for instance, sort of seasonal fundraising versus a steady subscription fee. And just to highlight this rapidly, it's important to say, as much as we are trying to figure out where the money goes and think and have a lot of conversation around crypto, almost all of the major banking and credit systems have clear links to these individuals, we found, in addition to solicitation of cash and even bartering. And so this is just a costings. Anyone who has questions can see, but we have anywhere from requests for $2 to $1,000 in merchandising fees, subscription fees, and donations. And just finally, to wrap up, the use of funds are diverse. So some of it goes back into the system, be that through legal war chests to pay off debts from legal cases or political overhead, but often there is a personal use to these funds. People will actively say, I am raising money to support myself. And that creates problems in terms of knowing where the money goes. And I can talk more about that. And I think it's just important to highlight that there's an intense amount of profitability in what is going on. As we noted in our report, one company grew from 12,000 pounds in net assets in 2021 to over 170,000 in 2022. So this is a large amount of money, and there's rapid growth in the sector. And that's it. Thank you very much.